Imagine getting disrespected in a store you own. That's exactly what happened to Darnell. Darnell Griffith stood across the street from his own store, looking like just another guy in downtown Santa Rosa, California. Baseball cap pulled low, gray hoodie, faded jeans and sneakers, no driver, no assistant, no fanfare. This wasn't about showing up with a clipboard or camera crew. He didn't need the red carpet treatment. He wanted the truth. Real, raw, unfiltered. What happens when the man who signs the checks walks in and nobody knows his name? Urban Thread & Co. had exploded in the past 5 years. Sleek, modern fashion with an edge. It started from his garage, and now it had over 50 locations, with this one being one of the top-performing stores in the state. But something had been bothering him lately. A few quiet complaints from customers, a couple of strange reviews. One comment in particular. Great clothes, but felt like I didn't belong. He couldn't ignore that. So today, Darnell wasn't the CEO. Today, he was just another customer. Just a man who needed a jacket. He took a deep breath, crossed the street, and walked through the front door. The first thing he noticed? Music playing low in the background. Anderson .Paak. The kind of vibe he wanted his brand to carry. Cool, relaxed, smart. The layout was clean, lighting just right. But something felt off. Nobody looked up. 2 employees stood near the register. One was a tall guy with curly hair, restocking shelves. The other, a young woman in black leggings and a green crop top, leaned against the counter, phone in hand, scrolling, tapping, laughing quietly to herself. Darnell stepped further in, looked around, ran his hand along a rack of denim jackets he'd approved himself 6 months ago. Still crisp, well folded, tags clean. His heart swelled with pride for a moment, then deflated, because 5 minutes passed. Nobody greeted him. Nobody said, "Hey, let me know if you need anything." He wasn't wearing anything flashy. No Rolex, no Louis belt, no clue that he could buy the entire inventory with a single swipe of his card. Just a man with questions and no one willing to help him. He cleared his throat softly as he approached the counter. "Excuse me," he said politely. "Could you help me find this jacket in a larger size?" The woman didn't look up right away, just held up a finger without a word, eyes still locked on her screen. Then after a beat, she sighed. "I think that's all we got out there," she mumbled. "If it ain't there, we don't have it." Darnell blinked. She still hadn't looked at him. He held the jacket up again. I figured, but is there any chance there might be one in the back?" Now she finally looked at him, fast, like his voice suddenly got on her nerves. "I just said we don't have it," she snapped, eyes narrowed slightly. "If it's not out there, it's not here." Darnell raised his eyebrows, not angry, just surprised. "Right," he said quietly. "Thanks anyway." He turned and walked away, jacket still in hand, his mind buzzing. He had seen bad service before, sure, but this wasn't just laziness. This was something else. He stepped to the side of the store, near the fitting rooms, where he could still see the counter from the corner of his eye. A minute later, a young white guy in khakis walked in. Hoodie, beanie, no different than him, really, except when he walked in, the same girl lit up. "Hey, welcome in," she said, smiling. "Let me know if you need help with anything, all right?" The customer grinned, nodded, and wandered over to the jackets. Darnell stood still, heart sinking, but something told him not to leave. Not yet. Darnell leaned against the far wall, pretending to browse, but he wasn't looking at clothes anymore. He was watching. The girl behind the counter, her name tag read Alana, was now chatting it up with the new customer, smiling, friendly, all the energy she didn't have just 5 minutes ago. Darnell's fingers tightened slightly around the jacket he still held. Same question, same store, different treatment. He'd come looking for authenticity, and now he had it. He made his way over to another rack, closer to the fitting rooms. A younger employee, a stocky guy with thick glasses and a short afro, was adjusting a display of hoodies. He looked up, made eye contact, then looked down again. No hello, no nod, just moved right past him like he wasn't even there. Darnell's thoughts started to churn. This wasn't about being famous. Nobody had to know who he was. But if you work here and someone walks through that door, you treat them like they matter. That was company policy. That was human decency. Still, he tried to give them grace. Maybe they were having a bad day. Maybe they'd just dealt with someone rude. Maybe they were tired, hungry. Who knows? But there's a difference between being distracted and being dismissive. Darnell watched the new customer grab a jacket and walk toward the register. Alana met him there with a big smile. "That's one of our most popular pieces," she said cheerfully, folding it. "It looks good on you." The guy laughed. "Thanks, honestly, this store's dope. Super helpful staff, too." Darnell's jaw tensed. He didn't even realize he was doing it. He slowly walked back toward the front. The guy was still chatting while Alana bagged his purchase. The tall employee with curly hair had joined the conversation now. Suddenly, everyone was friendly, engaged, lively. Then Darnell stepped into view. Silence. Alana's eyes flicked toward him, then quickly away. The tall guy leaned on the counter like Darnell wasn't even there. The vibe shifted again, like a record skipping mid-song. Darnell let out a quiet breath through his nose. He approached Alana calmly. "Hey," he said. "Sorry to bug you again, just wanted to ask, do you happen to know if that hoodie over there runs big or true to size?" Alana didn't even hide it this time. She rolled her eyes. "I'm not sure," she said flatly. "You could try it on, I guess." "Do you have a fitting room open?" "Yeah, over there." She jerked her chin toward the back without looking. Darnell turned slowly, walked back toward the changing area. No offer to open a room, no tag removed from the hoodie, no smile, nothing. Inside the fitting room, Darnell sat down on the bench for a moment. Didn't even try on the hoodie, just sat there in silence. Elbows on his knees, heart heavier than before. He was used to being underestimated. He'd spent years walking into meetings with people who assumed he was the assistant, or the driver, or the marketing guy. But this felt different. This wasn't about titles. This was about being seen. And right now, he felt invisible. But then he remembered. He had the power to change this, and the time was coming. Darnell stepped out of the fitting room, hoodie draped over his arm. He hadn't tried it on. Didn't need to. That wasn't the point anymore. He walked slowly toward the front, taking in everything. The way the music played on, the way employees moved, how the mood shifted depending on who was being helped. The double standard wasn't subtle anymore. It was loud, clear, and right in front of him. At the counter, the tall guy with curly hair, Dre, according to his name tag, laughed with another customer, a woman in her late 20s. She held a handful of items, and Dre offered to carry some for her. "Got you," he said, smiling wide. Darnell paused a few feet away, holding the same hoodie he'd been dismissed over. He looked at Alana. "Mind if I check out?" She glanced at him, then at the hoodie. "You trying that on or just buying it?" "Just buying," he replied calmly. Alana turned around slowly, dragging her steps like every movement was a chore. She grabbed a plastic bag, then stopped. "You got a rewards account?" "No." "You want to make one?" "No, thanks." She punched a few buttons on the screen, didn't say a word, didn't look up. The silence grew louder with every second. Darnell finally broke it. "I'm just curious," he said softly. "Do y'all treat all customers like this?" Alana froze. Her fingers hovered over the register keys. For the first time, she looked at him for more than a second. "What do you mean?" "You greeted that guy when he came in," Darnell continued, nodding toward the door where the earlier customer had exited. "You smiled, gave him suggestions, told him the jacket looked good on him." Alana's jaw clenched slightly. "Okay. But I asked 2 questions and got attitude. You didn't even look at me until the second time." She crossed her arms, her tone shifting. "Look, I don't know what you're trying to say." "I'm not trying," he cut in, voice still calm. "I'm saying it." There was a pause. Dre turned around, sensing tension. He stepped closer to the counter, sizing Darnell up. "Everything good here?" he asked. Darnell looked at him. "You tell me." Dre's eyes narrowed a little. "Sir, if there's a problem—" "No problem," Darnell said, his tone steady. "Just a pattern." Alana tossed the hoodie in the bag. "Do you want the receipt?" "Yes, please." She slapped it on the counter and slid the bag toward him. He didn't pick it up right away. Instead, he stared down at the counter for a moment, thinking. How many people had walked through these doors and left feeling small? How many got ignored, judged, brushed aside? How many didn't speak up, just swallowed it, told themselves it was all in their head? He'd built this brand from nothing, worked every angle, raised capital, took risks, spent sleepless nights shipping orders himself. It had never been just about fashion. It was about belonging. Urban Thread was supposed to be for everyone, but clearly, not everyone got the memo. He finally grabbed the bag, turned toward the door, but before he walked out, he stopped. "I'll be back," he said quietly. Dre scoffed. "Cool." Alana didn't say a word. Darnell walked out into the afternoon sun, the glass door clicking shut behind him. He didn't go far, just down the block, into the coffee shop on the corner, ordered a black coffee, sat near the window, and stared at the store. The experience hadn't shocked him, but it did shake something loose. Because this wasn't just about one visit, it was about culture, and culture starts at the top. But before he could start fixing the culture, he had to show them who he was. It was 30 minutes later when Darnell returned. No hoodie, no cap, just him, shoulders back, calm as ever, but this time, dressed the way the world expected success to look. Slim-cut blazer, dark jeans, leather loafers. His Rolex peeked just slightly from beneath his cuff. Still understated, still composed, but impossible to ignore. He walked into the store like he owned it, because he did. The bell above the door gave its usual ding, and right away, everything changed. Alana looked up. Dre straightened a little. The air felt suddenly charged. "Hi there," Alana said quickly, voice almost too cheery. Darnell looked at her, no expression. Dre stepped around the counter, smiling. "Hey, welcome in, sir. Can we help you find something today?" Darnell didn't answer. He just walked the floor, scanning every display, checking tags, inspecting how things were folded, how merchandise was organized, how dust gathered in corners nobody noticed. He took his time. Then he circled back to the counter. "Is the store manager here today?" he asked. Alana blinked. No, she's off. Back tomorrow." "You the shift lead?" "No, Dre is," she said quickly, nodding to him. Darnell turned toward Dre. "Cool, let's talk." Dre hesitated. "Talk about what?" "Right now." Dre shifted awkwardly. "You got a complaint or something?" "No," Darnell said, his voice razor steady. "I have authority." Alana's face changed instantly. Her fake smile faded. She glanced at Dre, who was already walking toward the side office. Darnell followed. Inside, the office was barely big enough for two people. Folding chair, metal desk, basic computer setup. Darnell remained standing. He closed the door quietly behind him. Dre sat, still trying to play it cool. "All right, so what's going on?" Darnell paused, letting the moment breathe. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a slim black leather wallet. From it, he drew a silver access card with the Urban Thread & Company logo and his name, Darnell Griffith, founder and CEO. Dre's eyes widened. Darnell laid the card gently on the desk. "I walked in this store an hour ago. Hoodie, jeans. Minded my business. Tried to ask a basic question. Got brushed off, ignored, talked to like I was wasting time." Dre opened his mouth to speak, but Darnell lifted a hand. "I'm not looking for excuses. I've been in retail. I know it's hard. I know people have bad days, but this isn't just a bad day. This is a bad pattern." Dre sat back slowly, silent now. Darnell kept going. "Two customers walked in today. One got help, smiles, suggestions, a welcome. The other got told, if it ain't there, we don't have it. You want to guess which one was me?" Dre's face tightened. "I didn't realize." "You didn't want to realize. That's the problem." Silence sat heavy in the air. "This store pulls strong numbers," Darnell continued. "But numbers don't mean nothing if the culture's trash. If customers leave feeling invisible. If people of color feel like they're being judged the second they step in." Dre fidgeted with a pen. "Look, I'll talk to Alana. She's new, still learning." "No, you're the lead. That means you set the tone. You don't get to hide behind her inexperience. You let it happen. You watched it happen. You joined in." Dre swallowed hard. "You're right." Darnell nodded once. "I know." He reached for the access card, slipped it back into his wallet. "I'm not here to fire anybody," he said. "Not today." Dre looked up, hopeful. "But understand something," Darnell added, leaning in slightly. "This store represents me, my name, my values. You don't have to love every customer, but you will treat them with respect, no matter how they dress, no matter what they look like. You feel me? Dre nodded, slower this time. Yeah, I feel you. But the conversation wasn't over yet, because next, he needed to talk to the person who started it all. Darnell stepped out of the office, his pace steady. Dre stayed behind, probably trying to gather himself. Back on the floor, Alana was folding a sweatshirt, but her movements were stiff. She glanced up when she saw Darnell approaching again. Only this time, her smile didn't come back. She already knew something was different. Maybe it was the look in his eyes. Maybe Dre had warned her. Darnell stopped a few feet in front of the counter. You got a minute? Alana hesitated. Sure. He motioned to the sitting area by the entrance. A few modern chairs and a small table. Clean, unused, mostly decorative, but perfect for what he needed. She followed him, clearly unsure of what was happening. They sat. For a moment, Darnell just looked at her. Not mean, not angry, just quiet. The kind of silence that makes a person uncomfortable because they know they've messed up, but don't know how bad yet. You know who I am? He asked. Alana tilted her head slightly. No. I'm the owner of this store, of the whole company actually, Urban Thread & Co. Her eyes widened. She blinked fast, like she was waiting for him to say he was kidding. He didn't. I came in earlier, Darnell continued, wearing a hoodie and a baseball cap, asked for help, twice. Alana's mouth parted slightly. Wait, that was you? That was me. He let that sink in. Alana shifted in her seat. Her posture changed, shoulders hunched now, hands in her lap. I'm sorry, she muttered. I'm not looking for an apology, Darnell said. I'm looking for understanding. Alana looked down. I wasn't trying to be rude. I just didn't realize that I was worth helping. She flinched at that. The words hit. He didn't press, just gave her a moment to sit with it. I get it, he said, voice softer now. You saw someone walk in who didn't look like money. You made a decision. Maybe you didn't even realize you were doing it. But that's exactly the problem. Alana finally looked up. Her voice was low. Sometimes people come in here and they just waste our time. Like they're not really shopping, just hanging around. Darnell nodded. Sure, that happens. But it's not your job to guess who's worth serving. It's your job to show everyone respect, no matter what. She nodded slowly. I've been you before, he said. Years ago, retail job. Worked 2 of them, actually. I know it's not always easy. You deal with rude people. You get tired, but what you can't do is decide someone's value based on how they look. Alana's eyes started to water a little. She wiped at them quickly, embarrassed. I'm not mad at you, Darnell said, but I am disappointed because when people walk into this store, they're walking into something I built, something that's supposed to welcome them. That didn't happen today, and I can't let that slide. I understand, she said quietly. You might think I came in here just to catch someone slipping, he added, but I didn't. I came in because I needed to see something, and unfortunately, I did. There was a long pause. Then he stood up. I want you to think about this, Alana. Not just because I'm your boss, but because one day, someone's going to walk into your life, quiet, regular, unassuming, and they might be the one who changes everything for you, but only if you're paying attention. Alana nodded again, eyes still lowered. Yes, sir. Darnell turned to leave, but before he took a step, he looked back. And for the record, that hoodie you didn't want to help me with, it was one of my designs. Alana's face dropped. Her mouth opened, but no words came. But the real lesson wasn't in the reveal. It was in what came after. Later that evening, after the store had closed, the district manager pulled into the lot behind Urban Thread's Santa Rosa location. Her name was Kendra Boone, sharp, no nonsense, and one of the few people in the company who'd been with Darnell since the beginning. She found him inside, sitting on one of the window benches, sipping a bottle of water. His jacket was off now, sleeves rolled up, the weight of the day clear on his face. You really did it, huh? Kendra asked, stepping inside. He looked over. Had to. She sat across from him. Heard Dre's shaken up. Alana too. Darnell nodded. Good. They should be. Kendra gave a soft laugh, but it wasn't out of amusement, more like frustration. It's wild how quick people show their true colors when they think no one's watching. Darnell leaned back. That's the part that gets me. We built this company with a mission, not just to sell clothes, to change the way people feel when they walk into a space, representation, respect, belonging. Some folks missed the memo, or they never believed it to begin with. Kendra was quiet for a second, then asked, "You want them gone?" Darnell looked out the window where the sky was starting to turn gold. "Firing them would be easy," he said, "but growth don't come from running away from mistakes. It comes from facing them, feeling the weight of them, learning." She nodded. "So what now?" "I want both of them at that staff training next week. First one's in the door. I want Dre to apologize in front of the team, not to shame him, but to hold him accountable. And I want Alana shadowing someone who gets it. I don't care how well she knows the register. If she doesn't know how to treat people, she doesn't belong here." Kendra took it in. "You sure they're worth the second chance?" "No," Darnell said, "but I'm sure it's worth offering one." There was a pause. Kendra smiled a little. "That's why this place is different." Darnell stood and grabbed his blazer. "If this happened to me," he said, "it's happened to someone else. Probably more than once. And not everyone who walks through that door has the power to say something about it." Kendra watched him walk toward the exit. He stopped before opening the door. "One more thing," he said without turning around. "I want a sign posted near the entrance. Not something flashy. Just a statement. Plain and clear." "What should it say?" He looked over his shoulder. "Here, you matter. Period." Kendra smiled. "I'll make it happen." And with that, he left. The following week, the team gathered for training. Dre stood in front of his coworkers and admitted what had happened. His voice was tight at first, but honest. He didn't blame anyone. He didn't deflect. He owned it. Said he was learning. Said he knew he had to do better. Alana sat beside Kendra all day, watching how people were welcomed, not sized up. And at the front of the store, just under the Urban Thread logo, hung a new black and white sign. "Here, you matter. Period." Some people stopped to read it, some didn't, but the message was clear. We never know who we're talking to. The person in front of you, no matter what they're wearing, how they speak, or what they seem like, could be the reason you get your next opportunity, or the one who walks away feeling invisible because you didn't bother to look up. Respect isn't something you offer when it's convenient. It's something you give because every human being deserves it. And if you work with people, serve people, or talk to people, this should never be optional. If this story made you pause, made you reflect, even for a second, do something with that. Check how you treat people when no one's watching, how you speak, how you show up. Because character isn't revealed in moments of pressure. It's revealed in the quiet, everyday choices we think don't matter. They do.